My name is Marin Cole, 42, systems architect at NextVerge Analytics, or I was, until the moment my boss screamed the word traitor across the open floor. You met with competitors. Traitor Grant Ellison's voice cut through the office noise like shattering glass. Dozens of heads turned. Someone dropped a mug. Coffee splattered across the carpet. He was shaking with rage, waving a sheet of paper, a photo of me, frozen mid-handshake with a project manager from a rival firm. "This is betrayal," he snarled. "You shared internal data. You humiliated this company, and you'll apologize before security walks you out." The room was electric fear, shock, curiosity all blending into one sharp silence. My throat was dry, but my mind clear. I had known this moment would come. Grant didn't want an explanation. He wanted a spectacle, something to remind everyone who held the power. I stepped forward until only the desk divided us. "Do you have any proof?" The words came out calm, too calm. His mouth opened, then closed again. The silence that followed hit harder than any slap. I watched the color drain from his face as the authority in his voice began to crack. "Don't play clever. Marin," he hissed, "this is your last day. Then make it official." My phone buzzed. One short vibration. I glanced down a message from Elise Tran. "My attorney. Cease and desist filed. Delivery confirmed." My pulse steadied. I met his eyes and smiled. "I think we're done here." "Grant." He froze. For the first time since I'd known him. He looked unsure. Behind him, the team stared the quiet developer, the intern gripping her coffee, the HR rep pretending to check her watch. No one moved. I turned away, collected my badge, and walked toward the elevator through the hush of recycled air and fluorescent lights. Every step echoed like punctuation on a sentence I'd written days ago. The doors slid shut. My reflection stared back, calm, steady, unshaken. 2 days earlier, I had only been a loyal employee. Now, I was a woman with proof. 2 days earlier, I had driven across the bridge to Bellevue for the Pacific Tech Sustainability Summit. It was the kind of event every engineer half-dreads buzzwords, recycled pastries, and endless panels about innovation through collaboration. I went because NextVerge sponsored it, and because showing up looked good on paper. During a break, I found myself at the coffee station beside a man with a conference badge that read, Evan Hart Rydell Systems. Rydell was one of our competitors, mid-sized but fast-rising. He smiled politely. "You're with NextVerge. Right. You built that adaptive analytics layer everyone's talking about." I gave a short nod. "Guilty." He laughed. "Relax. I'm not stealing secrets. Just admiring the architecture." I remember saying something simple, something harmless about open-source frameworks and sustainability standards. It lasted less than 3 minutes. Then someone asked to take a group photo for the event's LinkedIn page. We smiled, coffee cups in hand. Strangers caught in a polite snapshot. By the time I drove home, I had already forgotten it happened. The next morning, my phone lit up with Slack notifications. A message had landed in the general channel. The image was there, me, mid-conversation with Evan. The caption beneath it read, "Guess who's sharing trade secrets?" I stared at it until the words blurred. The thread exploded, laughing emojis, private jokes, whispers. Someone tagged Grant. 10 minutes later, he messaged me directly. "See me in my office." Now, when I walked in, he was already holding a printed copy of the photo like evidence in a crime. "You realize how this looks," he said. "It looks like 2 professionals at a public conference," I replied. His eyes narrowed. "You think perception doesn't matter? Here, I think facts should." That's when I saw the decision in his face. He wasn't asking for clarity. He was hunting for a reason. By noon, the rumor had spread through every department, and somewhere between the coffee machine and the Slack feed, I understood this wasn't about a photo. Someone wanted me gone. They called it a clarification meeting. I knew better. Grant sat at the head of the small conference table. Tie loosened just enough to pretend he was reasonable. Across from him sat Paula, our HR manager, neutral smile, tablet ready. The air smelled of cold coffee and toner. the usual scent of premeditated damage control. "Marin," Paula began, "this isn't disciplinary, just procedural. We want to help you move forward from the misunderstanding." Grant slid a folder toward me. "Sign this, and we'll classify the incident as an error in judgment. Your record stays clean. You'll just need to write a short acknowledgement of misconduct and apology for the team." I looked down. The page already had my name typed at the top. The word apology appeared 3 times in bold. "You want me to admit to something I didn't do," I said. Paula's smile tightened. "It's not about guilt. It's about optics." Grant leaned forward. "You embarrassed this company." "Marin, you were seen speaking to a rival executive. Clients talk. The board asks questions. This is the simplest way out for everyone. The simplest way for you," I replied. He exhaled sharply. "I'm giving you an out. If you refuse, HR has to escalate. I'm trying to protect you." I took the folder, flipped to the last page, and saw a clause at the bottom. "Employee agrees not to pursue legal or reputational claims against NextVerge Analytics." There it was, the real purpose. "I appreciate your concern," I said slowly, pulling my phone from my jacket and setting its screen down on the table. "But I don't sign fiction." Grant's voice dropped. "Think carefully. Refusal looks like defiance. You've worked here 7 years. Don't throw it away over pride." I pressed the record button beneath my palm. If loyalty means rewriting the truth, maybe it's already gone. For a moment, no one spoke. Grant's jaw flexed. Paula typed something without meeting my eyes. I slid the folder back to him. "You can keep your narrative. I'll keep my integrity." Outside the glass wall, people pretended not to look as I walked out. By evening, my access to the internal server had quietly disappeared. The email hit my inbox at 10:57 in the morning. Mandatory all hands, effective immediately. No agenda, no explanation, just a time and a floor number. When I walked into the open workspace, every monitor was dimmed, every conversation muted. Grant stood in front of the projector like a politician about to deliver bad news disguised as leadership. HR lingered near the exit, hands clasped, faces carefully blank. "Team," Grant began. "I wish this meeting were under better circumstances." His tone was heavy, practiced. "As of today, Marin Cole is no longer with NextVerge Analytics." A ripple went through the room, chairs squeaked. Someone gasped. "She has violated our confidentiality agreement and compromised our professional trust." I stepped forward before he could continue. "Proof. Grant, bring proof." He froze, mid-breath. I looked around dozens of faces I'd mentored, worked late with, defended in reviews. None of them met my eyes. "Do you have evidence of a single data breach? A single unauthorized file?" I asked. Grant's voice faltered. "This isn't the place." "It's exactly the place," I said. "You made it public. Let's finish it public." The silence that followed was total. Even the air conditioning seemed to hold its breath. Paula from HR moved closer. "Marin, let's discuss this privately." "No," I said. "Let's discuss why I'm being labeled a traitor over a coffee break photo." Grant's jaw twitched. "You're creating a scene." "I'm correcting one." He turned to HR. "Escort her out." A young security guard barely older than my nephew stepped forward. His hands trembled. I unpinned my badge and placed it gently in his palm. As I walked past Grant, I stopped beside him. 7 years of work, and you can't name one line of code without me. I hope you documented that. His throat tightened, but he said nothing. At my desk, I unplugged my laptop, slid it into my bag, and took the small plant that had somehow survived every reorg. My phone buzzed. One message from Elise Delivery confirmed. Legal notice received by corporate counsel. I smiled, stepped into the elevator, and pressed the ground floor. The doors closed on a silence they couldn't control. The law office smelled faintly of lemon polish and burnt espresso. Elise Tran didn't look like the lawyers I'd imagined. No gray suit, no cold stare. She wore dark jeans, a navy blazer, and an expression that could slice through pretense. She slid my folder across the desk. "You kept everything," she said, sounding half impressed, half alarmed. "I build systems." I replied, "Documentation is a reflex." She opened her laptop, scanning line after line of my old contracts. "You signed this 7 years ago. Standard non-disclosure. Standard IP clause. Except," she pointed at a paragraph buried near the bottom. "This sentence limits company ownership to material created during active employment. Anything prior remains yours." I leaned forward. "Those core automation modules, I wrote them 2 months before my start date." Elise looked up. "And they're using them in production." "Yes." "Integrated into their dashboard. The same dashboard Grant demoed to investors last quarter." Her eyes sharpened. "Then we're not talking defense, we're talking infringement." I felt the first real breath of relief in days. "You're sure?" she smiled faintly. "Marin, this clause is an attorney's dream. It's clean. Time-stamped commits, private repositories, emails predating your hire, all admissible. You didn't betray them. They built their revenue on your pre-owned code." The words hit harder than I expected. I had been walking around carrying anger, but what I felt then was something else: clarity. Elise continued, typing as she spoke. "I'm preparing 2 actions. 1, to demand retraction of their accusation. 2, to notify their board about potential IP violations. We'll send it today." She paused, eyes still on the screen. "You were right to back up everything. Most people panic, delete, or try to prove innocence. You built a record instead. I knew they'd rewrite the story." I said, "So I kept the original version." Elise nodded. "Good. Now we'll make them read it." By the time I left her office, my phone buzzed with a new email in my inbox, subject line, "Notice of Representation, Cole v. NextVerge Analytics." For the first time since that photo surfaced, I wasn't the one on defense. By morning, Elise's email had turned into a storm. 3 letters, identical in structure, sharp as blades. Each one began with the same line. "This notice serves as formal demand to cease and desist use of proprietary code authored by Ms. Marin Cole prior to her employment with NextVerge Analytics." I sat across from her as she hit send. "Board of Directors, Legal Counsel, Chief Operations Officer," she said softly, tapping each name. "And for good measure, 2 of their biggest clients." My stomach tightened. "You're sure about the clients?" "Very," Elise said. "If they've been using your work without license, they need to know before they get caught in the fallout." By noon, my phone started buzzing nonstop. Messages from old colleagues, fragments of panic dressed as curiosity. "What did you do?" "Grant's losing it. All projects frozen until further notice." I didn't answer. Elise and I sat in her office, watching the ripple move outward. It didn't take 24 hours. By that evening, Orion Logistics and DataCore Systems, NextVerge's 2 largest contracts, had both suspended their deployments. Their lawyers wanted verification of code ownership before continuing. Grant called my personal number at 9:15 p.m. I let it ring twice before picking up. "What the hell have you done?" "Marin followed procedure," I said evenly. "You accused me of leaking company property. Turns out, it's mine you've been selling. You're bluffing." "I don't bluff. Check your inbox." The letter came from my attorney. He was silent for a moment, then lowered his voice. "You're playing with fire. You think this ends well for you? I'm counting on it ending rightly," I said. He hung up without another word. Elise smiled from across the room. "Congratulations. You've officially shifted the balance." I exhaled, my pulse steady for the first time in weeks. Outside the office window, the city lights shimmered against the rain. Somewhere in NextVerge's tower, someone was reading my name on legal letterhead for the first time and realizing the game had changed. The retaliation came faster than I expected. Within 48 hours, NextVerge's legal department filed a counterclaim accusing me of misappropriating proprietary tools. They used my own code to frame me as a thief. Elise called me in as soon as the notice arrived. "They're doubling down," she said, tapping her pen against the table. "They're arguing everything you built belongs to them under the work-for-hire clause. That clause doesn't apply to pre-employment materials," I said. But my voice cracked. She looked up. "You're right, but they're betting you can't afford to prove it." She wasn't wrong. My savings had started to vanish: legal filings, consultations, document reviews. Every check felt like another piece of my safety being auctioned off. I caught myself staring at my dwindling balance more often than I slept. That night, Maya, a friend from HR, called from a blocked number. "Marin, you didn't hear this from me," she whispered. "They're telling people you stole the system architecture. Grant's been feeding that line to the investors." "Of course he has," I said. "There's more. They're saying you're unstable, obsessed, vindictive. The board wants the press to believe it." I thanked her quietly, though the words burned my throat. After the call, I sat in the dark with only the hum of the fridge and the weight of disbelief pressing down on me. By morning, Elise had news. "I think I found something," she said, walking into the room with her laptop open. "An archived email sent from your personal account to your old mentor, dated 2 months before your employment start date. It includes your design schematic for the adaptive layer, the same one NextVerge's platform runs on." I leaned forward, scanning the timestamp. The breath I'd been holding for days finally released. Elise grinned. "This is our foundation. It's irrefutable. They used your pre-existing code without license." For a long moment, I couldn't speak. Everything, the rumors, the fear, the cost, quietly shifted into focus. Elise closed the laptop. "Now," she said, calm and certain. "We make them answer for it." The audit began quietly, like a rumor no one wanted to name. Elise had forced their hand. Our evidence package triggered a mandatory internal review at NextVerge. For 2 days. Silence. Then the leaks started. The first message came from Maya. "Someone in compliance just told me the audit confirmed it," she whispered. "Every line of your architecture matches the pre-employment schematic. They can't bury it." By noon, Elise called. "They're panicking," she said. An internal memo was leaked. Someone forwarded it to 3 reporters. The story's about to break. I opened my laptop, and there it was, a headline glowing against the dark screen. "Seattle engineer wrongly fired for betrayal." My name filled the first paragraph, followed by screenshots from the audit summary commit logs, timestamps, file authorship. The article quoted an anonymous source inside NextVerge. She was set up to take the fall for leadership's mistake. Within hours, my inbox exploded. Former coworkers, journalists, recruiters, even clients I'd never met. Most messages started the same way. I had no idea. Grant vanished from the public channels. His assistant sent out vague updates about personal leave. The HR department scrubbed old announcements from the internal site. By evening, investors had demanded an emergency board call. Elise forwarded me the official statement before it went live. It was thin. "Rehearsed NextVerge Analytics deeply regrets the misunderstanding and is conducting a comprehensive review." When I read the word misunderstanding, I almost laughed. 7 years of work reduced to a single euphemism. Maya texted again later that night. "They're losing clients. Orion and DataCore froze budgets. Half the dev team is looking for new jobs." I set the phone down and stared at the window. Rain traced slow lines against the glass, like the city itself was exhaling. For the first time, the noise wasn't inside me. It was outside, in headlines and boardrooms, in voices that could no longer be contained. Elise called one last time before midnight. "They're requesting a settlement meeting," she said. "Tomorrow morning." I nodded, though she couldn't see me. "Then let's give them their reckoning." The conference room they booked downtown looked almost identical to the one where it all began: glass walls, artificial calm, a pitcher of untouched water sweating on the table. Grant was already seated when I walked in, his posture perfect, his eyes hollow. The board's attorney sat beside him. Elise took the seat next to me, folder in hand. Grant didn't look up. Let's just get this over with, he muttered. Elise's voice was steady. We'll begin once the acknowledgement is read into record. She opened the folder and unfolded a single page. Grant's attorney cleared his throat. NextVerge Analytics formally retracts prior statements made regarding Ms. Marin Cole and acknowledges that the allegations of breach of trust were unfounded. Grant's jaw tensed. Elise continued, her voice sharper now. Furthermore, NextVerge issues a written apology for the reputational and professional harm caused by those false accusations. I watched his hand shake slightly as he signed his name. 7 letters that once opened every meeting, every memo, every command now reduced to the bottom of an apology. When the pen dropped, Elise passed the copy to me. You may keep the original, she said quietly. I read the first line to myself. We regret the unfounded accusation of betrayal against Ms. Cole. For a long moment, no one spoke. The air was thick with everything that had been said and everything they'd tried to erase. Grant finally exhaled. Is that enough for you? I met his eyes. It's not about enough. It's about accurate. He nodded once, bitterly, as if he'd swallowed something sharp. The company's counsel slid a final document forward: settlement terms, licensing agreements, numbers that meant closure. Elise gathered the papers, but I stayed still. For what it's worth, Grant said, voice low. You were the best engineer we had. I stood. You could have just said that 2 months ago. As I left, Elise tucked the signed letter into her briefcase. Congratulations, she said softly. They'll spend years rebuilding what you just reclaimed in one paragraph. Outside, the rain had stopped, and the city lights didn't look like glass anymore. They looked like possibility. 6 weeks later, the office smelled like fresh paint and coffee grounds. The sign on the door still looked temporary foundry systems printed in black on a piece of paper, but it was mine, every inch of it. I had rented a small space on the north side of Seattle, overlooking the Puget Sound. The furniture came from a liquidation sale, the desks mismatched but sturdy. On the wall behind me hung a single frame, not my diploma, not my first patent Grant's signed apology letter. The paper looked almost plain under the morning light. The door opened softly. Jamie, the young engineer I'd decided to hire, peeked in with her laptop tucked against her chest. She had once interned under Grant, and I remembered seeing her name on the email chains that circulated the photo of me. You're early, I said. She smiled nervously. I didn't want to be late. I wasn't sure you'd really hire you. I finished for her. She nodded. I believed the rumors back then. I'm sorry. I gestured for her to sit. You believed what everyone else did. The difference is you showed up to learn the truth. Jamie exhaled, shoulders lowering. What do you want me to start with? Start with the architecture review, I said. Build it clean. Your name goes on every commit. She blinked. Mine yours. If you build it, you own it. Her grin was small, but real. She opened her laptop and got to work, the quiet hum of typing filling the room. Elise stopped by later that afternoon with coffee. It suits you, she said, glancing around. You look lighter. I smiled. Because I'm not fighting anymore. I'm building again. She raised her cup. To ownership. To truth. I said, when she left. I looked at the framed letter one last time, then turned it face down on the shelf. The fight was finished. Outside. The ferries moved slow through the gray water, and for the first time in months, I felt something simple and solid, peace shaped like purpose.